You know what I've been finding to be fascinating about the discussions that I've been having with them is the fact that there is an issue. Now that we're moving out of COVID, now that we're moving into this behavior, people really, the different generations are really having a challenge to come back to the office. And so the more advanced, progressive organizations are trying to figure this out and how to make it a little bit more understanding, a little bit more acceptable. I mean, I was just sharing at the beginning of our conversation how years ago, you know, there were the different kinds of treats that we had, like with Google, that there was the cafeterias, and that was just phenomenal. You know, and the different types of environments that were created to motivate collaboration in technology. Now that collaboration is all digital, that collaboration is virtual, and to try to get a comfortable setting within the offices, it really comes down to design to be able to create that kind of embracement. I'm going to just kick this right off. I don't want to sit away from it. But we're looking at something at the moment of, you know, one of the problems in the feedback that is being heard is like, if I come to the office, there's endless calls and there's endless meetings, and you know, I'm pulled into all of these on an ongoing basis. Where I'm at home, I have a chance to break it up a little bit and be able to do, you know, more with my family and what I need to accomplish. Well, how many employees are actually saying that and going to the office just to sit on these calls? And how are we going to address it? Because that's a psychological aspect in a behavior modification to prove that's true. So I'm going to throw this out to the group who might want to, Will, maybe you might want to answer that question or like share with us your opinion, because that's what we're going to have is a discussion on opinions.
Well, one of the first things I was thinking of is, pre-COVID, I was with my team one day and they said, we were going to get a coffee, and they said, Will, you can't walk down the hallway without picking up a new project to work on, right? And then we got into the micro kitchen and somebody goes, oh, I wanted to talk to you, right? And they had a new video project and they weren't sure about the bids or the processing, and then they saw me and I forgot how much you lose when you don't have random interactions with people on a daily basis, when everything is completely transactional, right? You get in your meeting, you unintentionally
virtual.
Yeah, when everything's virtual, and there's something really wonderful and organic about being in a shared space where you can have conversations that are unintentional, that are unscheduled, that are unplanned, so.
Well, you're explaining something that really has come out in the media around, like Bisa saying, half-hour meetings, very functional, very direct, but that's all virtual. Michele, are you designing anything within the marketplace today that is starting to take a look at this kind of reduction of virtual engagement that's more direct, what Will's saying?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is the focus in the office is on event spaces and on the ability to bring people together in different ways, not just meetings, where they are attending events and having those breakout sessions and actually doing more collaboration as part of the meeting in person versus virtually. So that's where I'm seeing a lot more focus in the designs on how to make meeting spaces work.
But is this driven predominantly generationally? Is it because otherwise it's just do it? It doesn't really. That's not really said, but it's come to the office. Let's work. Let's get this done. But you're seeing some sensitivities that are happening right at the moment.
Yeah, I think that people attend virtual meetings and aren't participating. They are listening. I mean, half the meetings you go to, sometimes you're listen only in conference type spaces, event type space. And so what they're trying to do is to get people more interactive.
So, but is that kind of coming back to generational interactive?
Absolutely.
Gil, you're nodding your head. I mean, I keep hearing that because I'm flashing to myself on the meetings that I'm in. everyone's on their camera and everyone's engaging. And this is global. This is people all over Europe, and our morning calls are very engaged. Obviously we can't come to the office, but they're very involved, and they're not, in the younger side of the age bracket, but they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're into it.
So yeah, partly office is definitely generational. A lot of the kids today, the younger generation that is entering the workforce, are used to basically using Zoom, Teams, video conferencing in college. So they enter, that's all they know, or that's most of what they know. But fundamentally, I think the entire need to come back to the office spans to the need of human communication, human contact, right?
That's right.
And so being able to do our work through a computer with a camera works, but when you actually can interact with somebody, like you mentioned earlier, the creativity that comes out of that, this one I thought about this, and I'll go directly to my peer here to make sure that what I'm thinking is correct, whatever. That actually works really, really well in the environment. I think that's what's driving a lot of the workforce back to the office, let alone the conveniences that now we can have in an office. For example, we can have now beer, wine, some companies offer that. There are snacks in the kitchen. Some companies even have an entire kitchen for the employees for free.
Sure.
So that's part of what actually brings people back, the culture. I want to feel that I am as comfortable in my office as I am at home, and I have the conveniences as well that I can have at home.
Wouldn't that be nice? That's a nice gesture to be able to make that work. But Laura, just was before us here, she was talking about that kind of engagement at home, to be able to have all of this immersive environment, to be able to have that kind of capability. So it does come down to. I'm going to give you a little story. I was having, an afternoon business cocktail last week with someone I've known for years who changed companies, and he was up in Seattle, and he was with one of the large firms down here that have the large buses that go up to San Francisco. And I said, "So how's the commute?" And he says, "Well, I go into an office. There's just long tables. It's really kind of impersonal, but there's a lot of yakking going on, a lot of discussions that are taking place." I said, "Well, how do you feel?" He says, I've actually stopped it because I actually get kind of seasick driving in the bus." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, I'm working on that in the engagement, but by the time I get to the office, I'm not feeling well. And so I come in, and here I am in the office." And so there's all this dynamics that are going on by once you're in the office, and then how to get to the office. So there seems to be, a lot of opportunity to open up this area to be able to start pulling people back into this whole engagement of, like you said, collaboration and going down and, having this kind of opportunity that, to be frank, I think we're all used to, because that's what we missed by having, COVID and this change of behavior that was there. Are you finding that too, Juho?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the stories about like office, going to office and feeling like you're getting value out of it reminds me, we're working with a client. This is before the pandemic, but it was interesting. They had a new building, and they asked for us to design their workspace. And they had 2 floors. Both floors were done by different business groups, same intent, like lots of soft furnishings, different types of meeting rooms, spaces that support different modalities of work. And on one floor, when we spoke to people, they were super engaged and stoked and excited to go there. On the other floor, that kind of on the surface had all the same amenities, people were like, "No, I don't really like coming here. Like, I just come in and do my work." And the big difference between those 2 spaces is that one floor had invested in basically an experienced person, a person who was coordinating all the activities around the work so that people don't just go in there, sit at a desk around people who they might not even work with, do their work and then leave, but actually like pull people out of that, organize events. So I think the rituals and culture that you create around space is as important as the physical amenities or technologies you put in. So you have to have those both in place, and it's not enough just to do affordances with the space, which is also needed, but it's not enough.
It begs the question of which is the most productive. Which floor was addressing their, goals versus the other? Like, maybe I don't want to come to this. Or like, did you happen to do that research and taking it one step further and see which floor was actually more successful in meeting their goals?
I don't know if I have numbers of that, but I think the business group that was in the space that had headcount for the extra person to facilitate, I would say they were more successful, because they had that extra headcount. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. Does anyone else have any opinion on that too, when it comes to that kind of environments, what creates more productivity? It's one thing about whether or not they like it, but how are they when it comes to productivity? Does that make a difference?
So one of the trends that we see is that today the work has to get done whatever time it is. In the past, it was you have 8 hours typically to get your job done.
Point, yeah.
Today, you can do it anytime you want. If you want to take 12 hours, break in the middle for 3 hours, take your dog for a walk, whatever you want to do. The flexibility that we have gained through the entire work from home environment has also made our days longer if we choose to do that, but productive if we choose to do that as well. So it's really a combination of do I want to get out of work early enough to enjoy the rest of my day, or do I want to spread my work throughout the day to do nice lunches, little things in between, take my dog for a walk, anything you want, right?
Wow. So that actually is in consideration, is like, if I get my work done, I can leave early versus what has been a normal process of getting to work at a certain time and leaving the office at another time. So in other words, it's here in the Valley versus in Manhattan, as far as the type of work behavior that exists. Is that what we're saying? I mean, I like that idea, but how do they dictate that? And so that's a change in management. That's a change in engagement.
It is, yeah. In the process of designing, part of what we do as consultants is design the workspaces. And so one of the questions that we ask while we're doing the discovery for the design is, what is your company culture like? What is the age group? What are your working hours? What kind of amenities do you have in the facility, or do you want to offer to your employees? To your team, we don't call them employees anymore. We say your team. What's your team like? And that basically gives us a good idea of how to design a space with the architect that will conform to those needs, the scheduling, the timing, all of those bits and pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, this sounds pretty amazing. One of the questions I had is, in that case, is there a need to have the office then, in this case, because you were pointing this out for the different floors, to have the home, have the business feel like home? Is that really a driving factor? The types of furnishings, the types of connections, the device. Since you're Will, I mean, is this something that's really you're seeing within your design?
Yeah, well, I was going to say in the building I work in, now that you say that, it is a very homey and kind of relaxing environment. They've kind of completely redone it, and it's a really wonderful workspace. I really actually enjoy going there. And I didn't think of that until you mentioned it, that it's not as corporate as it used to be. And I don't know, maybe you can, is that intentional? Or are they saying, well, people are used to working at home, maybe we need to make the workspace feel a little more like home. There's, couches and bookshelves and plants, and it feels very natural.
Juho, I mean, you're directing that to?
Sure. Yeah, I think I used to also, besides IDEO, work for IKEA, so decorating home is very close to my heart. And there's a lot of studies that show that, soft furnishing plants, this, right, have a big impact on people's productivity. And one interesting article that I read kind of post-pandemic was there's this article on BBC around how sense of awe, so when you see something impressive or like your brain kind of gets surprised, that has a big impact on your creativity and openness to new ideas. And when I saw that article, that made me think about this pandemic life where we're staring at like 13 to 15 inch, depending on your computer size. That's the only thing that's changing in your kind of like vision. And then that means your brain is getting more stuck in similar pathways. And I think what we do a lot in our workspaces and events we do with our clients, because we need to get them excited, get them into a space where they can think about new things, is we decorate rooms and we go through like ridiculous amount of work for like 2-hour meeting that you're like kind of feels excessive. But when I read that article, I was like, that makes sense. Like you think differently. And that's, I didn't love working at home all the time during pandemic. And to me, it's that like your brain just gets stuck. You don't form neural pathways because your brain doesn't get surprised, so it doesn't have to adapt. And I think that's a big part of what workspace can do, is like get your mindset into a new space.
Get you in a comfortable way of interacting with others. To stay on that for just a second, I'll ask everyone for that you can share. I mean, something that you're working on now. I mean, where you're at, Will. I mean, that's in place, and you've just shared, and I have a share too. Once we go through this, Michele, are you working on anything right now that you can openly share with some of the new ways of looking at what the offices are looking like?
Sure. We're working on a lot of projects around Silicon Valley. So a lot of companies who are designing spaces to bring people together, some of them for, again, collaboration. And the key for the technology side is to make it seamless. Make it something that you can walk in and it just works. I know we say that a lot, but they are designing rooms where the technology is hidden very easily.
Hidden. I mean, we're talking
Like-
wireless connections. I mean,
It could be displays that fold up into the ceiling. It could be that there are mics and speakers mounted throughout the room in a way that you don't even feel them.
does the furnishings tip over to couches and back to?
This specific space I'm thinking of was for collaborative coding. So there are a lot of people coding in a same room with a lot of code on the walls and coming down so that every person could see the code very, very close up. And that's hard work to do, but they're doing it in a collaborative space.
And that's part of the seamless connection then. In other words, they're in that area and they're connecting into that particular router that is then engaging with them on those devices,
Correct.
on those screens. So when they leave, they drop off. And that would be very inviting with a team to try to put that together and start creating that environment. To that effect, does that help them do you feel that kind of openness and that design and those, appearing monitors help them be more creative in their process?
Collaborative, they're talking
Collaborative
while
is
they're
one, but
writing.
being creative?
They're also seeing what other people are doing real time, and they can adapt their way of working quickly. So it's not like I have to text Johnny, did he mean to put that code there? He doesn't have to do that now. He can stay doing what he's doing and have either a conversation or adjust to what he's seen on the screen.
Yeah, that just tells me that then comes back to generational engagement, because many people don't really want to share what they're working on until they present it.
Finish it, yeah.
And you're suggesting that this new environment is something that they're openly engaged and working from a technical standpoint, not just from like a conversation, like, hey, I've got an idea, I want to be able to produce something, but they're actively coding, they're actively watching together and jumping in and finishing the code. Is this common?
I think that's, again, like, it's part of the culture, right? Like,
Part of the generation? Or
I'd
is
say
it part
more corporate culture. Like, we're design consultants, so we work with lots of clients, and some client companies, we literally teach to bring half-finished ideas to work. Like, because many organizations have a culture where it is not okay to show something that's not perfect or thought through and stuff like that. And that makes sharing work live very, very difficult, right? So there's this cultural aspect of it. But then there's also a physical aspect. Like, we have this, like, we're a very tangible culture. But then through the pandemic, we shifted to a lot of online collaboration tools. And pre-pandemic, every idea, every prototype would be pinned on a board in a project space. So you could literally walk through the office and see that this team is working on medical robots, and you could see what they're working on. And you could walk to the next space and see, food products and, this richness. And then that richness also made you inspired and come up with new ideas and change the ways you work. And I think what I would love to see better tools, and we're helping our clients design these tools too, but how do you bridge those two worlds? How do you bring those things out of Figma or whatever collaboration tool is of your choice and bring it into the space, like you mentioned, the coding thing? I'm surprised that humans still code, because I thought AI is doing all of it for us now. But anyways, like, how do you bridge those worlds? And how do you, what we do is, like, we print a lot of stuff, even though it's on digital forms, and pin it up and have it in the studio.
Well, you're raising then the question for me then from a regional embracement. It is, since we're here in the Valley, I mean, this has always been an area of open discovery and discussion and exploration and the capability of working together on things. Now that, are you finding that offices or companies that are now requiring their employees to be back in the office, really working towards this on a much more aggressive process? Are you seeing that right at the moment? Here, okay, versus like LA, let me give you an example of experience. I'm looking out at the crowd right now. One of the things is, I see Greg's taking a photo here, and I'm going to use an example exactly of what we're talking. Has anybody in here been to Warner Brothers in Los Angeles on the second floor? Okay, that second floor is outrageously cool. With the couches and the kitchen and the openness that is there for collaborative engagement of discussing, and what those discussions are based on creative development, not so much from a technical standpoint, but from an exchange of how that is. And that's firsthand experience there that has taken place. So are you seeing things happening regionally? Like is there any area that is a driving factor compared to other areas? Like, for example, we're in the Silicon Valley. Is Seattle kind of the same way? Are you seeing the projects coming into Los Angeles or Denver or London? Or is this worldwide, or is this something that is regionally driven?
From my perspective, it's crossing multiple industries. I mean, we're seeing in broadcast all over the place. They want to collaborate and edit together, remotely and in common spaces. So they are designing spaces now that allow you to do that, both music, animation, and it could be broadcast.
Yeah, I'd have to think that, I'm just going to put my foot in my mouth here, but I'd have to think it'd be a different kind of, like, the creative engagement. I mean, when you're talking about music collaboration, you're talking about visual collaboration, you're talking about people that are used to sharing that from a production standpoint, they're more inherently, set the way they work to do that. Whereas in coding, it may be a little bit more confined in how that creative development is taking place. Are you looking, Gil, you've been talking about some really interesting projects that you're having, but are you seeing that difference of you're talking about the kinds of people that you come in and you interview and what you really want to have. But is that something that's really a driving factor? The coders versus, creatives?
Yeah, I think Michele has a very good point when she says it's the industry, right? There's a difference between government. An emergency operations center is very
I can only
different
imagine that difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so yeah, part of it really has to do with the industry that is doing the work. Now, another key point that Michele touched upon is consistency. Consistency and usability. A system has to be friendly to use. And the way we design or work with clients to accomplish that is that we have 3 levels of collaboration in an office. An office space may have hoteling spaces. So people come in, these are the basic, people come in with their laptop. The IT department gives their employees a box that has peripherals that are all the same and a laptop and a docking station. So you have the same experience, you take that home. You have the same experience at home, you bring your laptop, put it into the hoteling space, it's exactly the same as your home. And then the next level is the cube that is a little bit more personalized. A cubicle, in there is the same experience, same monitor, same camera, same everything, but now you have your personal gadgets in there, and that's a place where you don't move around from, right? As opposed to the
That's your
holding
spot.
spaces for the people that are. And then the third one is the collaboration space. That's a conference room that is fully outfitted with a nice display, a full sound system, and it's the same idea of you bring your station or your laptop, but instead of a docking station, now you have wireless collaboration. So you punch in a code on your laptop, and then all of a sudden you're sharing everything that you need to do. Your laptop picks up on the peripherals. So the cameras from the room, the microphones, the audio is all now part of your laptop. And so that brings back the idea of, hey, consistency from your home to the office, back and forth, enables you to be as creative as you are at home, if that's where you're more creative, to do it in the office with your peers.
Yeah, but what you just described is the loss of privacy, as far as cameras and engagement and the 3 of you, deal on finding these assignments and having these discussions to create an environment that is welcoming to the advancement of their overall goals of the company. Will, my experience in Google has been just phenomenal about how that has been pretty much in the MO for years of trying to have this kind of interactive environment that can promote this kind of wonderment, because many times it is a wonderment. It's like, how did we come up with that? And you live it. You're there. You participate every day. Have you felt that change since COVID coming back? Are people now back in the offices and they're embracing? Are they changing it at all? Have they adjusted since then? Or is it really still as wonderful as it always been?
Yeah, I mean, it's different. Well, one of the things, I come in 5 days a week, even though I only have to come in 3 days a week.
Generational.
Yeah. And so on Mondays and Fridays, like I'm kind of there alone,
Yeah, I bet you are.
I have, have the place to myself. But I think, I think we're still, it is interesting. We're still kind of coming out of this COVID era. It's weird to say. It's 2026 and we're still kind of learning how to work together again and find, patterns and, even just going to lunch with people. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot, right? I forgot to ask coworkers to go to lunch because it's been so long since, I was doing that. So now we're kind of doing that again. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think it's still changing.
But going to lunch before has always been just going down the cafeteria, and having meetings, supposedly, on certain things. You're looking at actually going off campus?
No, we never go off
Yeah,
campus. There's no reason to.
I was going to say, wow, that's a new one to me.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, once they're there, you're there.
Yeah.
And that comes back to the importance of designing and building an environment that is very embracing for the, at the risk of sounding cold, the employees that are there. Because what I've been hearing is really making it attractive, like they were going to be at home, and something that they would feel comfortable in bringing their pets and their kids and all the things that allow them to be connected to themselves as much as it is to their colleagues. And we're seeing that more and more now, because it used to be just very unique. Are we seeing this kind of ask that's coming to you at this time? In other words, are you busy? Are you active with the engagements that you have? Is that something happening?
at IDEO specifically. Yeah, like I think it's similar to Google. We're recommended to be office 3 days a week, and we're not super top down, we'll tell you what to do type organization. So, if you're working on a project with people from Europe, then and you've been on call since 7, you might not come in those days. But like it is definitely busy. Those days, Fridays and Mondays are quieter. But then there's a crowd of people who really love coming in those days, specifically because it's quieter, because there is less meetings. And
Just not that early.
yeah, just not that early.
It's dark out right
Yeah,
now. So.
but you can go for lunch with a group of people, the whole studio, and handful of people. No, but it is. It is definitely getting busy. But I think like what makes the difference is activating space through humans. So we have an amazing experience leader in the studio who organizes all kinds of events throughout the week and like thinks 1 quarter, 2 quarters ahead around what we're going to do in the studio, and really like puts a ton of effort into making sure that it's not like your home, it's better than your home. That you have a project space that you can decorate with all the things that have to do with the thing you're working on, and have a little home for the project. That's not the same as your home, it's actually different, right? But then people will go to IKEA and buy sofas and decorate that space, and we're okay with you painting the room and doing things that are
In the office.
In the office, yeah.
Well, is that-
Encouraging them to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that's what we'll close on, is encouraging this kind of participation and having you being in a position of thought leadership to help that develop. And we're stepping into a new, even though it seems like it's been going on for a while, not what you were describing, Michele. I think that's really fascinating. What you're experiencing, Will, on a daily basis, and having yourself, Gil and Jono, working on this and finding out what the interests are. I applaud you. I think this is a phenomenal step forward when it comes to changing the way we work. So thank you. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.